Well, hello again, Nicholas. We are splitting this up into a few different episodes, and we're going to talk now about why feedback matters. So, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, thanks, Nat. Great to be on the show. I'm Nicolas Babin, and I have over 30 years experience around the world, working for major companies like Sony, and also working for startups. I've created over 21 startups in my life, done a lot of fundraising. And today I'm a consultant working with big companies like Huawei, one of them being a key opinion leader for them around artificial intelligence, but also working for startups and also giving a lot of training and sessions using LinkedIn and LinkedIn Learning.
Very good, very good. So, why does feedback matter, Nicholas? What? Does anyone care?
Yes, everybody cares. Feedback, whether it's in small companies, as in startups, or big companies like I found with Sony, the, the, the main thing about feedback is the fact that at least you know where the other persons stand. And that's the main key, because feedback, working with someone is basically having a relationship. It's almost like, you have for myself, your work wife and your wife at home, pretty much. So it's the same thing. When you're in a relationship with friends or whatever, you always give feedback. You play tennis, you say, oh, great game, or no, you could have done better. Oh, look, you always give feedback. That's the way humans are made. So some cultures will accept feedback better than others, definitely. Or some cultures, I should take back what I just said, because some cultures will do feedback differently. It could be like, for example, in Japan, feedback can be done also with body language, rarely with words. So it's feedback matters because feedback is all about building on a positive, constructive relationship with someone. So America, UK, you guys give feedback all the time. But again, feedback matters as long as there's no emotion in what you say. You need to base it on facts. And that's the key.
Right, right. I mean, I think it depends on who you're working with and how experienced they are, most definitely. I mean, over the past few years, I've worked with lots of different people, and I think the more senior they are, the less they actually have to say when they discuss something with you. They don't really sometimes even need to say anything, because generally by their attitude towards what you've done or their attitude towards something,
Mm-hmm.
kind of the feedback that they're sort of trying to give. So I kind of get that, but it's difficult when it comes to other countries and other cultures, right? I mean, I know you've worked a lot in Japan and America and stuff, but in England, I think it depends on also the company as well, right? And the culture of the company. Is that fair to say?
It's absolutely fair to say. In the UK, I worked over 8 years in the UK. What I really enjoyed about the UK is you can give feedback at any point. You're with your colleague or your boss or whatever, and you say, let's go to the pub. It's lunchtime. Let's have a bangers and mash, and we'll talk about business. Being in the same environment is very important. Feedback matters because it's definitely not about you as a person. It's more about your action. It's more about something you've done or something the company has asked you to do, and the result is different than expectation. So it's nice to give feedback in a casual environment. It's nice to give feedback in a place where you feel comfortable and where the other person is going to feel comfortable. Giving feedback matters if the two people are exactly on the same page. It's not about you being an adult and the person being a kid. You do not give feedback by judging somebody's role. You give feedback by saying, what do you think you could have done differently to have a different result? And that's when feedback matters, because feedback is then very powerful, because the person, you don't need to make them feel guilty, because they will feel guilty on their own if they have failed. That's human nature. So it's really important to say, what would you have done differently? And then thinking about it, they will say, oh yeah, you're right. Maybe we should have tried this way or that way. And then, you have made from a very, very easy way, or no, it's not easy, actually, the right word I'm looking for. It's from a from a simple act of giving feedback, you have made it something very powerful, because the person will grow based on the conversation you're having with it. And again, I have given a 7-hour feedback session to a lady who came to Berlin. I had, you know, I want to make sure that when I give feedback to someone and when I want to be constructive, I don't have time constraint behind me. I mean, I know that I'm totally available for that person, because if the person is really struggling and needs to discuss other issues than work, you need to be available. If you say, "Oh no, I'm sorry, this doesn't interest me," you don't know what's going on. The person might have his husband or wife ill, so they might be caregiving for them. They might have a parent ill. They might themselves be ill. There are so many things that could happen in somebody's life. And I'm not saying you're being a shrink here. I'm just saying you understand, you give powerful, non-emotional feedback. And even if sometimes, it goes into private life because the person feels like it, well, so be it. So it's important. You will look for feedback from your friends again when you have an issue with your wife, or when you have an issue with health. There's always someone you can call any time of the day or night, and discuss and be heard, be listened to, and being able to give also another point of view. This is exactly the same way in a company, and that's why giving feedback to me is the most essential element of any leadership requirement.
Wow. Wow. So really, feedback can be given anywhere, in any part of a business, in any role. It can be feedback about the person. It can be feedback about the business. It can be
Yep.
feedback about the project. It
Yep.
can be feedback about many, many different things. Yeah.
Feedback about the person is going to be the most difficult one, because in general, it's not objective. So when you have somebody who doesn't get along with anyone in your team, because of poor behavior or because of difficulty talking to others, you as a leader, your role is to make sure that you dig deep and you understand why that person is behaves like this. It's like, I have two boys. They are now very much older, 24 and 21. But when they had a problem with somebody at school, I didn't want to go and be mean to the kid who would punch them or anything. I would try to understand with the person's parent, or the kid's parents, sorry, or the teacher, saying, can we try to find out if this kid is unhappy, if he has a problem in his life? It's like, why is he taking onto my kid? Is it something that could be changed, and not being, no, you're going to be punished. Who are we to say we're going to judge you? Yeah, of course, maybe you're the boss, so you have more experience in the role, but it's not because you've had your experience that experience can help the company at a different stage in life. You see, so feedback again is about making sure that, okay, you keep your experience, you have grown as being a leader and everything, but you also listen to what the other person has to tell you, to take it on and say, oh yeah, you're right, actually. I never thought about that, and maybe we should have tried that. And that's what I mean by constructive feedback.
Hmm.
I,
So so it matters for someone's personal development, and it matters for the business growth, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Essential for business growth, because
Right.
you need your team engaged to make sure that the business grow.
Hmm. And it should be a continual process, yeah.
It's an everyday process. Absolutely. Yes.
Hmm. And a continual process of refinement of actually, it's a bit like shaping the rough diamond, isn't it? And smoothing out the rough edges, yeah, so that they
Absolutely.
are easier to work with, easier to deal with,
I
and this
mean,
kind of stuff.
you give feedback all the time. I mean, even if it's not implied feedback, like, okay, let's talk about this project, but you give feedback all the time, saying, it was great to have lunch with you. That's a feedback. Um, I really enjoyed the conversation we had together. Great feedback. On this subject, I this is what I think, but obviously I understand what you're saying. This is another feedback. So all day long, you give feedback.
Of
and and
course.
and this is why feedback is so essential. Of course, what I'm pushing my limit here a little bit, because I know what we're trying to talk about is more on the business sense and how to make your business grow. But make sure, I've had bosses in Japan who would give no feedback, who would not talk to us. They will enter, and I've seen that in France as well for a French bank. The manager will come in the morning, lock himself up in his office. Nobody could have a meeting with him or whatever. You would ask his secretary to have a meeting. It was always closed door, and we would get no feedback. Seriously, it was the easiest job I had to leave in my entire life because I had no relationship with that person on an emotional side or on a professional side. Same in Japan. And so basically, as you have no link, you're approached by another headhunter, they offer you another job, then it's very easy to say no. When you have a special relationship and you know where your boss stands in terms of your projects and in terms of you as a person, it's very hard to leave. It's like, you have a girlfriend and you're very close, you'll never leave her. You leave your girlfriend because at the end you grow separately.
Yeah.
With the feedback, it's all about communication. I was in charge of communication for Sony Europe, so that's a little bit, as you can probably feel in my voice, a little bit of my passion. But externally, internally, even with investors, everything is different, but at all time. And that's why I loved working with journalists, and I would get feedback. We had a huge crisis in Sony with the battery issues back in 2006, where batteries would explode. And I would spend literally on my phone, I would have to charge my battery on my phone 3 times a day because my phone, I would spend my day on the phone with journalists trying to understand where they stood. So at least I could answer their concern. And in Europe, we had the best coverage in PR that anywhere else in the world, because in Japan, they imposed information. They didn't want to have any communication with that. Mm-hmm. In the US, they were trying to be more political and working towards what the journalists wanted. For me, it was a two-way street. It was like, okay, tell me really what the concern is, and I'm going to give you on my side all the information I have.
Yeah.
And that's how it worked. That was feedback. You see, so communication is essential, and making sure at least, and in communication, again, it's not only about speaking another language. Communication is understanding the culture and is understanding how to give feedback.
Very much, very much. So would you also say then that giving why feedback matters, it also helps with motivation in business and staff retention as well? Would you say that?
Oh, absolutely. Because feedback will make sure you have engagement from your staff. So you have loyalty. So you have a staff that stays longer, and feedback will allow your staff to say, hey, I've been in this job 4 years. Is there anything else for me to do? This is what you want. Because rather than sending their CV resumes to headhunters, these guys come and talk to you first. That's feedback. I loved it when people would tell me that.
Of course, and then you can go to HR and you can say, well, I think we need to expand their role, or we need to move them into this department, etc., etc. So it's a way of really understanding more about the employees, right?
Exactly, absolutely. I have a very good example to give you on this one. My assistant in Berlin, when I was head of communication, her name was Martina. Is Martina? So I saw her a long time ago, and I really believed in her. She was a fantastic communicator. I invested in her. She got her PR degree, and after that, I got her a job in PR. And she wanted to grow, and I knew she could grow more and more and more. And at some stage, she came to me and she said, "Look, anything else for me to do?" And honestly, at the time, it was 2008. Sony was it was a difficult time for Sony, so I didn't have anything else. So I said, I feel sorry because I know I'm going to lose you, but I'm going to help you. And she became special PR for Angela Merkel.
Wow.
And that to me today, if you ask me what's your biggest success as a leader, that's her. That's my biggest success, because I took her from being my assistant to a PR executive for Angela Merkel. She got the job herself. I was just a referral and I helped her with that, but she did get the job herself. And I made sure at least she knew everything about PR. So at least she was like Angela Merkel got attracted to her in terms of her job skills. And that to me is the biggest success today I've had in my life.
Wow. That's super. So it matters because you're going to build long-term relationships. You're going to hopefully or stay on at that company in the right way, or you're not. Yeah. So yeah, it's and it's a way of continual improvement, right? Like the Japanese say, don't the Japanese say like Kaizen? Is that what they, is that what?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. But so the management style in Japan is very flat, yeah, but it also, the consensus style also has a kind of dictatorial thing as well underlying. It's like, okay, well, we're going to
Underlying.
involve everyone to talk and we're going to get all these things done, but then if I don't like what's happening, I'm going to make a decision
I
and
make
you're
a
going to
decision
do it.
anyway. Yep, absolutely. That's exactly how it works in Japan. It's you need to know. I mean, and people are very comfortable with that once they are used to it. It's very hard for somebody coming from the US or Europe to try to adapt to the way they work, but
Mm-hmm.
it's exactly how they work. And these guys are very successful. You know, it's one of the most powerful economy in the world. They've done fantastic things. So it does work, but sometimes, you know, it's frustrating. It is changing. I've seen huge changes. I started with Sony in 1996, and I've seen huge changes. These guys are becoming more international. They are learning more English. It is changing, but it's still, you know, the boss is God. And what I was always trying to tell my staff is, I'm no God. I'm like you. I just have less hair than you, and I've worked longer than you, and that's the only difference between you and I. You know, the main thing is to make sure that we work well together. And how do we work well together? Is we give feedback.
Super. Well, I don't think we can add any more to that particular conversation. So, if anyone wants to get hold of Nicolas, they should contact me, and I will introduce, or we'll see if we can drop you a link or whatever. So that's no problem. Thanks for listening. And there's another one we're going to record any second about choosing when to give feedback.